Okay, welcome back to the Docova channel. In this video, we're going to look at checkboxes, radio buttons, and drop-down fields. Let's go. Okay, in this vid, we're going to go through a couple, in the examples I'm going to show you in the Element Demos database. Use a DBLookup because it's really, we really can't talk about drop downs and radio buttons and checkboxes without talking about DBColumn and DBLookups because they kind of go hand in hand. We've done decades of developing custom applications for companies, and this is part of what you're going to see, part of what makes us sets us apart from other low-code applications, in that it's just this kind of functionality that makes developing real applications that you need and can use in your organization. You're going to run into this kind of functionality, into needing this kind of functionality all the time. And as we go through our demos, you see more and more of everybody else has drop downs and everybody else has checkboxes and radio buttons. But you'll see they don't have DBLookups and DBColumns to make it easy in terms of populating those fields dynamically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up our API. So again, this is our API documentation. It's our object model, our APIs, and our formula language. And I'm just going to open up on the left-hand side here. You can see our formula language. And our formula language is comprised of commands and functions. So you can see here there's a whole bunch of commands and a whole bunch of functions. So I'm going to scroll down to DBColumn, for example. So you'll see there's a whole bunch. I'm going to scroll down so you can see how extensive our formula language is. And the formula language, again, we're trying to cater to all kinds of developers, right? So the citizen developer, you drag and drop elements on to create your own application. And then those people are a little bit more keen. You can use $$ username and dates and all these kind of fields. Makes it really easy to add some code, low code, to your application really quickly. And then, of course, our API for more advanced developers. And so, that whole idea of, low code or solutions, handcuffing, what you can do in an application, diminishes more and more as you have these kind of capabilities in Docova. Okay, so let's go to DBColumn. So you can see right here, DBColumn and DBLookup are right beside each other. But I'm just going to look at DBColumn, and really I'll tell you the difference between these two just quickly. So you have views in Docova and forms. So you create forms so that you can enter in information, content, and when you save that form, it becomes a document in your application. And then you show those documents through views. And views are basically data grids or columns of information that you can categorize and group and total. And views in Docova are also Gantt charts and also calendars. So it's just a different way to show the data and so on. But views are really useful for looking up columns of information or looking to find a document on a key. And the thing is that you don't have to be a developer and know how your database table structure is or anything like that. All you have to know is, I want this column from this view, for example, or I want what's in that field in that document that's in this view, and I'm going to identify it with this key, like whatever. So I'm going to show you how to do some of that, which is really cool. It's really powerful. Okay, so let's click on DBColumn. Okay, and so this is what the documentation looks like. It basically gives you the syntax. A little bit hard to see here. So what I've done is I made a little PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so let's hit F5. All right. Okay, so let's talk about this function for a minute, okay? So we're just going to focus on DBColumn for this, and we're going to demonstrate how it works. And so the syntax is that DBColumn returns a list of values from a column in a view. Now, the first, so we have DBColumn, $DBColumn, so all of our functions are preceded with or prefixed with a $. And so there's several parameters here. The first one is not used. In fact, we have it so that when we convert Lotus Notes applications over to DocOva, that it's a placeholder for that for the most part. Then ServerDB, this is really the application, because you can look up information not just in the application that you're in, of course, but also to other applications on your platform. So that's what that's for. So I could say, for example, you could have an application that stores currencies, or a good example would be cities and states or provinces, that sort of thing, right? So that all of your applications could leverage that one application that has all these sort of core typical lookup things, values in them, right? Is one way that it could be used. And I'm going to show you an example of it. And so really what it comes down to is you say $DBColumn. For the most part, you're looking up into your own application, so it's just going to be comma, comma, the name of the view that you want to look up and what column you want to return, and the column of values, okay? And so here's an example here, and this is exactly the example we're going to look at. So if you were going to use a formula, and we'll show you that you don't have to use this formula in DocOva, you just point and click your options to do this, and we're going to show you how deep it goes. If you're a programmer, you're going to appreciate this a lot. Okay, so DBColumn, we're going to look up column 1 from lookup category is all that says, okay? So I'm going to show you properties. So on the left-hand side here of the screen, these are RadioButton Properties. And then in the middle there is a view. So on the left in the properties, we're saying look up the lookup category view and return the values in column 1. And we're going to use those values in column 1 to populate a form on the right there with the lookup choices, right? So blue, green, red, and yellow. So those are, the color fields of a bunch of forms in a view. So I'm going to go through how that's constructed in DocOva. And this, I'm just using blue, green, red just as an example. But this could be a list of cities. This could be, departments by division and stuff like that, right? Departments, or it could be people. It could be form types. It could be whatever you would otherwise populate a checkbox or radio button or whatever in, okay? So we're going to go through this in more detail. And then there's this one here, which is the next level. And so we'll go through that. So not only are we looking up the blue, green, red, yellow, but based on what you look up, you can do another lookup to information with that as the key, okay? If you're going to program this, it's typically quite a lot to do, especially when you get into 3 or 4 fields to do. It can get quite complex, and DocOva just makes it really easy for you to choose and for you to implement that into your applications. It's actually quite big. And save you a ton of time in applications, and it is so common. Okay, so let's go out to DocOva and have a look at that. Okay, so I'm going to open up Element Demos, and on the left-hand side of the menu under Form Elements, you'll see that there is the checkbox, radio, and drop-down examples. And I'm just going to go to the radio button ones. Actually, you know what? Okay, so the checkbox one we'll start off with, and we have a document in here. So if I open it up, you can see checkboxes in read mode, and if I edit this document, I can now edit the values in here, and click on more things and save and close it and so on and so forth, right? But I'm going to compose a new checkbox form. I'm a little slow here just because I'm quite a far away from my Wi-Fi hub right now. Okay, so let me create a new checkbox form, or use a checkbox form. Subject, say AAA. So here you can see this first example is enter choices 1 per line. So Toronto, New York, Miami, whatever. And the thing about, if you don't know, so checkboxes, the difference between checkboxes and radio buttons is that checkboxes are square, radio buttons are round, right? The little part that you select. Everybody out there, I'm sure, is familiar with how to use them. Checkboxes are made so that you can select several of the options that are presented to you. And radio buttons are made so that you can only select one. So radio buttons are good for yes, no, true, false, or just being able to select one of an option. Okay, so let's go into the design of these checkboxes, and I'll go through one by one these examples. Again, I'm going to take the time here, not trying to be too efficient with these videos, just so you can see the reality of going to the form and seeing how quick it is to get to these examples. Okay, so this is F1 checkbox. There it is right there. Clever names, right? Okay, so the first one we're looking at, so you can see the subject here. So in the app on the form, that's what it looks like. There's the subject, right? Then enter choices, one per line. So if I click on this, again, I didn't give these any names, I just drag and drop. So all the field names here are all system generated by DocOva for you. So you don't have to put them in if you don't want to. It's a good idea to put in proper field names for your application, but just for demo's sake, I drag and drop these on and set some properties, right? So the first one here, I said 200 pixels wide, right? And in the options, I said select manual options, one per line, okay? So what that means is that in this field below it, when you click on that, you get this dialog, and I can go and I can just type in all the options that are going to be in there. I could type all the states, I could type all the provinces and stuff like that, whatever it is, all the divisions of my company, all the whatever it is that you want to put into a checkbox or radio button, whatever. So that's all fine and dandy. So I put Toronto, New York, Miami, and Dallas. And so if I go over here, that's why you see there Toronto, New York, Miami, and Dallas. Okay, so it just comes out. Notice also that it's one column here, okay? And that's the next option here, display columns is 1. So that's all I've done. I've done nothing more. I haven't said that there's a default value or anything like that. And so that's what you get here is just that listing, right? Now the next one, the only difference between the one above it is that this is 2 columns. And the one underneath of it is now 4 columns. So one thing we have in DocOva is that for radio buttons and checkboxes, you know, the way that you display them might be you want them in one vertical line or maybe one horizontal line for all the options. Or maybe, you know, depending on how many you have, you might want to show a certain number of columns of them so that you can position and manage them on your screen nicely. So this is an example of those same 4 options in 2 columns. And the next one down is the same 4 options in 4 columns. And so let's just go and look at that really quick. Really easy, right? So I click on it here. The only difference is that I said displayed in 2 columns. And for the next one, the only thing is I said displayed in 4. So now you have control over how to manage those checkboxes and radio buttons. So wherever you position them on your form, you can decide on how they're laid out. Now, if you have an odd number, so say you have 11 choices and you said, I want 3 columns, it's okay. Doesn't matter, it will still line them up as 3 columns. You'll just have one less out on the right-hand side, for example. And in this particular case for 4 columns, I increased the width of the field so that it doesn't wrap, so that it just stretched across the whole thing. So just to show you what I mean, as we looked at this one right here, enter choices. So since I took all 4 choices and put them across, I just opened the width of the field so that, or widened the width of the field so that it just shows up nice, right? Okay, so the next one here, the default value set. This is just two things, so there's only one difference here, so it's still manual. Instead of Toronto, you know, Montreal, New York, Dallas, Miami, whatever I put in there, I just put 1, 2, 3 in there as an example. And I just put in the default value of 2, right? So of the 1, 2, 3 that I put in, I said 2 is the default. And so when you compose initially a new document, using this form, it will make 2 the default, okay? Okay, now we're going to get to looking up choices. So in the next one here, you'll see it says blue, green, red, and yellow. All right, so in here, if I select this field, you'll see instead of choosing manual here in the properties, instead of choosing that, I said lookup choices. And for the lookup choices, I chose DBColumn. So there's DBColumn, DBLookup, and then the column function. Column function is a more advanced topic that we'll get into later in a different video. The videos keep getting cooler and cooler. But suffice to say, just for this one, so there's DBLookup and DBColumn. I think I explained already. DBColumn looks up a column of values from view, and DBLookup looks inside of a view and looks for a column, and then you provide a key, and then it will look for a field on the document of the key that you did. Okay, getting a little bit complex, but I'll show you, and so we'll do that later. But for this particular one, we're doing a DBColumn. Okay. Oh, clicked off it again. So in this DBColumn, if you look down here, it says what view and what column do you want. So I'm saying look up to the, so you'll notice that this is showing all the views of the application. So I just have to pick one. So I'm looking up the lookup category view, which is a special view I did for this demo, right? And then column 1, I just want column 1 of that view. Now, there's only one column in that view, so it makes it super easy. But I'm just saying, you could, if you had 8 columns in that view, you could say, oh, give me, column 3 or whatever. So I'm saying column 1, and I just want to display one column when I get those values returned to me. And so here it is here, blue, green, red, yellow. Let's go look at that view. Okay, so that view is actually down here. In the menu, I can go to test data. I should have called it demo data, but see the lookup category view? That is the view that I'm looking up, right? So you can see here on the tab 2 that it's lookup category. So this view, if I go to my app builder again to the form, you can see that I picked the lookup category view, and that is this view, lookup category. I just named the menu item the same as the category, but this menu item is set up so that when I click on it, it looks up the lookup category view. A lot more about views later. Okay, and so if I click on that view, which I did right here, you'll see that I have 4 documents in there. And if I open up one of these documents, you'll see like blue, right? It's a really simple form that I have in here used to create these documents that just has one field, and that field is color, right? And so in here I entered blue, and in here I entered green, and that's why when you open up this document you see blue, green, red, yellow, because I said look up to lookup category view, the LU category view, and give me back the list of values in that column. Now, if you, it's a really great way to dynamically build checkboxes and radio buttons too. So as your content is added, these checkboxes and radio buttons can be are automatically, designed to pick up those values automatically for you. So you don't have to do anything more to include those. And I'll show you what I mean. So you notice here is blue, green, red, and yellow. So if I close this, and I'm going to create a new one here, and let's add purple. So this is a document, this could be an invoice, this could be whatever in the system, right, or in this application. It's really simple in my demo here, but I'm just going to add purple, and I'm going to save and close it. And you'll see that now I have blue, green, purple, red, and yellow. Okay. Now, if I come back to my my radio button that we've been looking at, and I go create, you'll see now that I've got purple down there. Right, so I have blue, green, purple, red, and you'll see here I was looking up to the same view for this example, and so it's been added there automatically as well. So when I'm looking up to views, depending on what the content, the dynamic content of those views are, is what dynamically populates your forms. They're living things. Okay, so let me, I'm not going to leave that in there, so I'm just going to come back to this view. I'm going to click on purple, and I'm going to delete that document just by deleting it right here. So I just deleted that document or record, and that's all built in. You don't have to worry about any of that. And so if I go down to radio button again, and I create a new radio button form, you'll see that purple is gone now. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that for that. That's basically how it works. And so let's go to that PowerPoint presentation now, right here, and just reiterate. So again, I went in to the field and I said, lookup category, and I said, bring me back the list from the first column, right? So it went to the lookup category view and it brought me back the blue, green, red, yellow column of values and populated my checkbox with it. I mean, my radio button with it. Okay? Now, what I'm going to show you now is the next level of that. All right, so on the left-hand side here, you can see the radio button properties. In this case now, and I'm now going to be looking at the next field after the one we were just looking at, right? So now this is a sublookup. This is handy. So say you had provinces or states and then cities in those provinces or states, and you pick New York State. Now you want to have a list of the cities in New York State to choose from. And so that can be populated automatically, and you can pick one of those cities, or you can then go, oh, I want Texas. So now you you pick Texas out of the radio button or checkbox, and it gives you a listing of all the cities in Texas. And this can go on. So you can have checkboxes that rely on other checkboxes in order to provide the values for subsequent checkboxes. So it keeps going on like that, right? And it's really easy to set up in .gova. It's a fairly complex programming issue in terms of returning information in arrays and stuff like that. But in .gova, we do it super simple and super efficient. And so in this side, so I'm going to show you this field in a second, but in the lookup subcategory, or in this radio button, we look up to the lookup subcategory view, and that view shown in the middle here is a categorized view. And we're going to go have a look at that in the element demos database. And what this is now is the blue, green, red, and yellow, and we're going to use those as keys, right? So when we click on that radio button and we say green, or we click on red, or when we click on yellow, we're telling it to go and look up all the blue subcategory documents or all the green subcategory documents. And it's super easy. Here it is right here. Okay, so let's go and have a look at that. Okay, let's go down to the view and have a look at that view. So I'm going to collapse this up. So here's the lookup subcategory view. Let me close this radio button thing for a second. Lookup subcategory view. And here you can see blue, green, red, and yellow. And you can have parent and child document response hierarchies and it works. Or you can just have single documents that are categorized in views. Again, we'll go through views. It's an extensive topic. But these are categorized. So you can see I can expand the categories here easily and see the documents underneath of them. So you can see blue and green. So what I'm saying is that on my form, when I click blue in the blue, green, red, yellow radio button, that I want it to go and look up all the green associated documents or all the blue associated documents, okay? And this is a little bit of how that works. Let's go down to radio buttons again. And I'm going to create a new one here just to demo this. Okay, let's slide down. So the lookup choices here give me the blue, green. So when I click on green, you'll see it populated this list here with all the green options. If I pick red, oh, then it gets all the red options, right? Or yellow, it gives me all the yellow options. And so dynamically, your forms are dynamic and really easy for you to put together and for you to understand of how you get these values and how you can jig together things like give me all the cities of this province, or give me all the departments in this division, or give me all the people in this department, or and so on. I realized that I didn't show specifically how to get the dynamic lookup from the previous fields, how to hook them together. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So as I went through this this demo here, and so for radio buttons, for example, so when I create a radio button, so what I went through here in the last bit, just before the drop-down fields, was the dynamic lookup choice. So if I choose green here, it goes and looks up the green options. If I choose red here, it goes and looks up the red options. But how did I hook those together on the form, right? So let me just show you quickly. I could do it through the checkbox, but let's go to F radio there since I was showing that. F radio. Okay. So in here, you'll see the default value for this was, for this one was lookup choices, look up to the lookup category and bring back the first column. And then for the next one that's dynamically generated here is, you'll see that I do a lookup choices again, and this time I am saying a DB lookup, and the view is the lookup subcategory view, which I showed you. The column is the second column, right? So the first column was, the red, green, yellow, blue, and then the second column was each of those dynamically looked up ones, right? So I'm saying I want to use a key. Now you could use a manual key where you type in a key that's going to be used in your application, but in this case I'm saying use a field. So the key that I'm going to look up is like the blue or the red or whatever in order to bring back the other options. And so you'll see that I use the field radio button 5, right? So it's, if we look on the screen, how can I show it here? If we look on the screen here, radio button 5. So what it's saying is for radio button 6, do a lookup and it will watch radio button 5 for any changes. So as soon as radio button 5 is changed, that lookup is done automatically to populate radio button 6, right? So in radio button 6 here, I'm saying do a DB lookup, look up to lookup subcategory view, give me back, look in column 2, and use a field on this form and use the radio button 5 field, and again display columns 1, right? And so again, just to beat this into oblivion here. So when I click on green here, you'll see that when I click on green and it gives me these green options here, it's because this field is watching this field. So that's how I've hooked them up, right? As I said, this field watch, field 5 for any changes. So when I click on yellow and made that change, then this field was watching that and knows to do its lookup to the lookup subcategories. Okay, so that's just a quick addendum. I realized that I didn't say that, so this is going to be slotted into the video somewhere. Okay, on with the video. And then from a checkbox point of view, it's exactly the same thing, only it's just checkboxes. And in my example here, and you can have two, so I only have one example where if I click on green, it gives me the greens. But I could extend that further so that, if I pick green option 2, it gives me another list dynamically, because I can also string these categories together. So I could string green together with green option 2, for example, as keys to look up more information. So no matter how complex your system gets in terms of needing to look up this information, it's really easy, super easy to put it together. Now, I'm going to touch on drop downs here. So radio buttons and checkboxes, they're the same. The columns, the display, and everything like that, those things are all the same. The only difference being that for checkboxes you can select many, and for radio buttons you can only select one. Drop downs, or they're really called selection fields. We call them drop downs, but they're also selection fields. And so you'll see here what I mean. This is where you have a drop down to select the options, right? And we have the ability in these drop downs as well to select one at a time, one option at a time, or many. So this is a case where you can select many options in one of these fields, and so on, right? So that's all that is. It's very similar to the to checkboxes, and that's why I put them in the same video, checkboxes and radio buttons. This is an example of the DB lookup. So this form is exactly like checkboxes and radio buttons forms, the forms in here that I've shown you, except just displayed as a drop down, right, or as a selection field. Okay, and then here's the categories lookup choices, right? So if I look up blue, then you'll see that in the the selection box below is my blue options, and then if I pick green, then my options here turn to the green options. If I pick yellow, red, than my red options, right? So it's exactly the same depiction of what I showed you in the radio box, in the radio button example. Checkbox is exactly the same, and these drop-down or selection fields exactly the same as well. Okay, so hopefully I've expressed how DocOva is head and shoulders again in its functions. It's not just about dropping a drop-down field or selection field or just a radio button or just a checkbox and then typing in your stuff, right? It's really about the ability to look up the values so that you have a more dynamic application. And when you're looking up values, you're going to have to look up multiple times to different things depending on what your application is, and that gets pretty complex. But we've made it super easy in DocOva. Just point and click at what you want to look at. And we didn't get into it here because it gets a little bit more advanced, so we'll get into advanced videos in the future. But suffice it to say that if you need to look up to even separate systems, legacy systems outside of DocOva to populate your checkboxes or whatever, you could do that. Or if there's much more complex lookups that you need to do where you need to perform some kind of math or functions, or you need to append things together or something, you can do all of that and deliver that result to any of the checkboxes, radio buttons, or selection fields in DocOva. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about those right now. Hope that was helpful. And I hope you have fun designing stuff. I think these are really cool functionality and really can make your application great and functional. And so I hope some of you out there who are creating applications find this useful. If you haven't already, subscribe, like the video. And if you have any questions or comments, we try to get to them, and just leave them below. And we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.